One story dominating the front pages this morning, the government winning the Commons vote on its benefits bill by 75 votes, but only after offering several concessions to Labour rebels, now leaving Keir Starmer's authority in question. If we have a look at the papers, there we are. Utter capitulation, reads the Express, no surprise, while the Times described it as humiliation. Well, with headlines like this, it's hard to believe. It's been just 12 months since Labour's landslide victory. So how does the party think the first year in power has been? Joining me now, Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner. Angela, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for coming in. A tumultuous night last night, all very embarrassing. People have called it a shambles, your own MPs. How are you feeling about it all this morning?
Well, welfare reform is always difficult. And I think one of the things that I would reflect on is this week is, in particular, around making sure we get this right.
Yeah.
So some of the concessions that people have said, or the work that we did with MPs, was to make sure that, first of all, anyone listening to your show today, they know that there will be no changes to their welfare. And I want to make sure that people are reassured by that, because a lot of people have been scared about what's going to happen. And then the future will be co-designed. The criteria will be co-designed with disability groups, and we needed to put what is being known as the TIMS review. That had to happen before the changes came in, and that's what MPs were really concerned about, making sure that we did things in the right order, supportively, so that people can be reassured that, yes, we will reform the welfare state because it's going up at a really rapid rate. We need to get people into good employment and the support there. So we're bringing that package forward, but also make sure that people who are really vulnerable and need that help get the right and proper help.
Sure. And nobody would ever disagree with that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that absolutely need help. The thing is, again, it's the question that you always have to ask. Where does the money come from? And, of course, there's a lot of people sitting today thinking, OK, that's all very well and good. People are going to get help. How are they going to pay for it? Will taxes go up? That's the question everybody wants to know.
Well, the challenge we've got is the projections for the welfare bill is going up rapidly. Yeah. So there isn't a savings now, because there wouldn't ever be. But what's going to happen, it's going to increase. We've got to flatten that curve a bit, because far too many people are being not supported enough into good employment. So that does have a cost to it if the welfare bill goes up too high. And that'll have to be set out in the budget in the normal way. And Rachel, our Chancellor, will have to look at those challenges that we face.
It's going to be so difficult. The thing is with the Labour Party, historically, you always have your fights out in the open. You know, they're never sort of done behind closed doors or anything like that. So the perception is that it's a shambles, that it's all falling apart, that Keir Starmer's not in charge, that backbenchers, if they see that, you know, they don't like something, if they push hard enough, then he's going to give up. And that makes him look weak.
Well, I would say that, to be fair to my colleagues, and many of them had been raising concerns privately. Some have not raised them privately, some have. And it's fair that the process of Parliament can look argy-bargy and look like everyone's falling out. But that's the way you get to a consensus. And when the crunch comes to a vote, that's like a pinch point, a flash point in the Commons and what happens. So people might see that as, oh, well, it's chaos. But actually, we've got to a better place now, and we've got the bill through Parliament at its second reading, and now we'll get into the detail. But what I wanted to make sure your viewers are aware of is to reassure them that nobody's going to see changes to what's happening with their benefits now, with their PIP, or anything that is going to cause them disruption, and that we're going to work with disability groups about the assessment process going forward and put more support in place for people who want to get a job and want to be in employment, because that support hasn't been there for them.
The perception, of course, is that there we are, we're a year in, and two very vulnerable groups like old people and the heating allowance, and also disability disabled groups. Two groups that really are so vulnerable that you would think that the Labour Party would protect. The perception, again, is that you're targeting people like that, and you've had to roll back. You've had to U-turn.
What we did is we kept the triple lock, which gave pensioners actually more money than what they had previously, because inflation had meant that the value of their pension wasn't as great. And we said that, you know, people who are millionaires don't need it. And many pensioners says, I don't need the winter fuel allowance. We got the threshold at the wrong point. And that is very clear, that people said we needed a threshold, but where you set that line we took it too low. And then we reflected on that and we changed the policy as a result of that. And I think that's a fair thing to challenge me on and say, but there's lots of other things we've done. 3 million workers, the lowest paid workers, have had a pay rise through our changes to the national minimum wage. The 39 billion that we've announced at the spending review, which will be 300,000 new social and affordable homes, which we desperately need, that are coming down the track now.
And
these things take longer.
Is that money set aside, or
that
do you
money
have to
we got,
find that money?
No,
to build
we
these
got
homes?
that in the.
So that's done.
So we've got that in the spending review.
Right.
It's a longer term process because that's over the decade. But what that will give us is 180,000 social homes for rent. That is critical. I've got over 160 children in temporary accommodation. And these are long-term problems that previous government has kicked down the road and they're coming home to roost now and we're having to tackle them. But they will have an impact for people. Wes Street, in our health secretary, said we will deliver 2 million more appointments in the NHS. We've actually done 4 million in the first 12 months. So there's a lot that we've done and a lot that we've got right. And there's a lot that we should reflect on as we get to the first year as well.
And from a human point of view, when you look at Keir Starmer, he looks tired. He looks under siege. As a person, how is he? Do you know what I mean? Because you're working with him all the time. You know, because, you know, the strains of this, he looks absolutely exhausted. And some people have said he's not going to be here after Christmas. He doesn't have the stomach for it, or he might be ousted. We don't know.
Do you know what? Even before I was in politics, I said that, have you ever seen a Prime Minister after a year or two in government? And people always say to me, do you want to be Prime Minister? Like, not a chance, it'll age me by 10 years within 6 months.
And it has.
It does. Anyone who's been Prime Minister, it is a very challenging job. And there's been, to be fair, for Keir Starmer, there's been a lot going on. He's been all around the world trying to repair the relationships in Europe. We've got the trade deals that the previous government wasn't able to do. Tackling the things like the tariffs that the president in the US wanted to put onto the UK, which would have damaged our economy again. There's a lot going on, and the Prime Minister's been you know, here, there, and everywhere doing the job for Britain.
I'm not
just abroad, but here at home.
I'm not surprised you don't want to do it because it's crazy. But a lot of people have said that you are there waiting to jump into the job. You're Deputy Prime Minister. I mean, if he does go, then inevitably you would do. But how, you know, when you're asked that question, is it something that you want to do at some point? What would you say?
No. I'm very interested in delivering for the people of this country because, look, to be elected as an MP from my background was incredible.
Yes.
And when I first went into Parliament, I thought, this is Hogwarts. And it's like, this is an incredible place. I've never been anywhere like it. It was like going in a church. It was an incredible building and learning all of that. But having that opportunity to serve my community that have raised me, looked after me, given me opportunities, and I don't forget that. And to be Deputy Prime Minister of this country it's got to count for something. Not a title, but what are you going to give back to your communities? And that's why I'm so passionate about council housing that we need. That's why I'm passionate about making sure we've got good, strong employment rights and that we're delivering for working people of this country, because they gave me opportunity. It was previous governments that supported me when I was a teenage mum. They gave me Sure Start, helped me look after my son. And those things matter. You know, when Gordon Brown gave tax credits, that got me back into work and I was able to, you know, sustain my son and feel a sense of pride.
Now, you've met the royal family many, many times, and there seems to be, you and the King seem to actually get on really well. Because I would imagine it's not something you thought might happen, but you seem to have actually you're always laughing and have something in common.
He's a really this is going to sound really strange, but he's really actually down to earth. Yeah. And it's like being out with a rock star. When, you know, if I'm walking around a town with him, which I don't do all the time, obviously.
No. But
on occasions when I have, like, the crowds that come out and to see him, he's just like, I don't know, it's something about the royal family. People really like them.
Yeah,
and
they do.
He is a nice guy.
And he's trying his best, and he's trying to affect change, and he's trying to do all of these things. You know, so fair play to him.
Yeah, well, he doesn't have to do that.
No, he doesn't.
But he does because he cares and he wants, you know, he challenges in a really positive way because he's got decades of experience of various different ministers, various different governments.
He's seen it all.
He's seen a lot.
And there is that thing about a sense of duty. I mean, you talked about that. You talked about the fact that you've got to have that thing of paying back, giving back. And I think that's the thing that we need to try and get back in this country, rather than being divided, rather than making, oh, that person's the other. if we can actually get back to that.
Absolutely. You know? And Prince William and the work that he's doing on homelessness, and there's a real focus of that now, which I really welcome, is that sense of giving back. So I can understand why Gordon Brown said what he said.
Yeah, of course.
It's because actually he's trying to really sort of drive change in a particular area. Yeah. Again, he doesn't have to do that. But he's doing that work, and they do have a pull factor to bring people on board and to drive change.
Now, look, apparently, according to the polls, if there was an election today, say there was, Reform would win and Nigel Farage would be Prime Minister. Do you ever see that happening? Do you think that's going to happen? What are you guys doing to stop that happening?
Look, I think there's, in the volatile election world that we're in at the moment, I think anything is possible. But I think that's determined upon whether we deliver.
Yeah.
People are frustrated. They voted for change.
Yes.
They'd had enough, and then they've seen what's going on. They want to see that delivery. They hear all the noise, and that's frustrating. But actually, how are you going to bring down my bills? How am I going to pay my rent? Am I going to have a roof over my head? And is things going to be better for my kids and they're going to get opportunities? They're the real questions that we've got to answer when we said we'd deliver change. And I understand people's frustration for that. And I think the politics is more volatile now than it's ever been.
Yeah.
But actually, I think it's also a worthwhile and respectable job. And I think for a very long time, there's been politicians that will stick something on a billboard and say, we'll get this sorted or this will happen really quickly. But actually, some of the real challenges our country face take time, a lot of effort, and you can't stick it on a billboard. You know, fixing the housing crisis, for example.
It's a 10-year plan, isn't it?
It's a 10-year plan.
And you hope you'll still be here to see that 10-year plan too.
I hope so, but if I'm not, it'll be on a projection that'll be really hard for anyone to pull it back.
Right.
But you have to turn it, it's like an oil tanker, you have to turn it round. It takes time to do that. So these big structural problems we've had, whether it's the economy, whether it's spending on defence, whether it's the energy, these are all big structural issues that have been kicked down the road for a long time that now we're having to fix. And that takes a long time. And in politics, you only have a number of years. Now, people might say that's quite a long time, but in policy terms, it takes time to do it.
It's glacial. It's absolutely glacial in a world where we live in a sort of TikTok world, which is 30 seconds here and a minute there, and then people's attentions are away.
So I'll give you the example, the Sure Start that I talked about. That took over a decade to see the results.
Yeah.
First of all, you've got to get the policy, then you've got to build it and deliver it, and then years down the line, when those young people grow up, that's when you see the benefit of that policy. That's like 10, 15 years after the policy was even, implemented. So that's really difficult in terms of, sort of the parliamentary process.
So the prospect of Nigel Farage in number 10 will give everybody basically a rocket up their bottom so that they have to get things done
Nigel
quickly.
Farage was the key architect for Brexit and all these wonderful things we were going to get. And we haven't had those wonderful things. Now, we can argue this, that, the other. We were promised a lot and we haven't had that. So I think you have to be very sceptical about people that will promise the world a moon on a stick and then there's no detail of how they can actually deliver it.
Angela, thank you. Thank you very much for coming in this morning and talking to us. A year ahead. It won't be another year before I see you, but a year in power. I bet it's felt like that. It's just gone by so fast.
It really has, and I'm also really frustrated and impatient to make change happen quick because I feel that people need that. I talked about a sense of pride. People need that, we need that hope for the future. I'm sick of feeling like we're in managed decline.
Yeah.
We need to, roll up our sleeves and, start building, start getting people in happier places and, being thankful for our neighbours, our kids, and enjoying our lives again instead of feeling like, things are not good enough for them. And politics can be a driver for that change as well. Yeah.
Well, good luck with that. I think everybody, no matter what side of the fence you happen to be on, would want that for us all. Thank you very much indeed. Well, that's a wrap for this video. We hope you enjoyed it. We have all the best moments from the show right here on the channel. And if you like this video, then we think you'll love this one. See you next time.